Hey, Mark, this whole concept of anonymous reporting or whistleblowing, right? It's not something very common in Malaysia. I mean, we have some structures in place. What are your thoughts on this, and how can we better strengthen? I mean, it's necessary, I guess, but
yeah, I think it's one of those things that's often overlooked. The value of it is overlooked by companies. So there's a report that we saw which showed that actually 47% of instances of fraud were reported through anonymous reporting line.
So there's almost half of it is
almost
reported,
half,
but no action was taken on it.
No, so that went on for the company to do its investigations and so on and so forth. So what we see is that a reporting line, especially if it's anonymous, can be very effective because there are people all around the company, especially a big company, who know what's going on, but often they're quite afraid to come forward, and with good reason. So the company has to make sure that if someone has information that's going to be important for the company's well-being, they know how to report it, and also critically what will happen when they do report it.
I mean, we're seeing now a lot of people going to send things out virally, like BFM again, with that email that went out or WhatsApp, I can't remember.
That's right.
But how should companies be building structures that enable these things to be quickly self-reported rather than having folks to force global audience to come down hard on a company?
That's right.
Like what happened in that case.
And that's a classic example of what happens if you don't get the internal reporting line set up properly. Because if people feel very strongly about an issue and the company isn't doing anything about it, or they don't even know how to report it, then with today's social media, they can produce something and then it goes out of the company, even if it's not justified, and it can do a huge amount of damage. Yeah.
So how does a company deal with that? I mean, like, for example, in case of BFM, right, what should they be doing to respond to issues like what has just happened to them?
Well, what they need to do now is do a proper impartial investigation and make sure that they genuinely get to the bottom of the issue. And if there was that kind of misconduct, then it doesn't matter who they are, then
Some action have to be
real action has to be taken. And if they don't do that, then, and if I may say, this is what happened with the MACC and Teoh Beng Hock, that whatever happened in there, the MACC really weren't transparent enough about it. So the people's perception of the MACC really plummeted. Now, whether they got it right or wrong, I don't know, but the point of transparency, of making sure it's done thoroughly, that the people who are responsible are brought out and expelled from the organisation, this is what really needs to happen.
And in that case, that case never got resolved, right?
Not really, no. Not to the satisfaction of the people. So the perception it's still there, and that's I work with the MACC on a regular basis. The MACC is full of very hard-working, very committed people, and we still don't really know what happened there. I mean, was it really what it appeared to be?
So whistleblowing in general is something companies should be thinking about, to put in structures to enable self-reporting and
that's right.
Some form, and it's how. What are some suggestions on some of these structures?
It can be very simple.
Okay.
So it might be an email address that only one or two people have access to, head of compliance perhaps, and the director who is in charge of the audit committee. Sometimes it's a phone line or a helpline. Terminology is quite important. If it's called whistleblowing is a very dramatic concept. If it's called an ethics helpline, then that bridges the psychological barrier for people, so they can call the ethics helpline if they have an issue, and then they can talk it through with a person who is properly trained and equipped to help them move from having a concern to actually making a formalised report.
Okay, some good ways. And I think every company should be thinking about this, right?
It's very useful.
Just the big companies.
That's right. And we've worked with SMEs who actually the business owner publicises his hand phone number and says, if you've got something that you think we need to know about, then call me. So the culture that enables that phone call to be made is also very important.
Yeah, that's interesting. I should do that too.
Okay, I'll tell you how. But it's not just having the mechanism; it's having the culture of trust that means that people will do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that takes more work.
Be comfortable enough to do that, right?
Yeah.
That's tough, right?
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Anytime.
Good advice again.
Okay, my pleasure. Yeah.